Welcome along to 98 Not Out, the cricket podcast. Welcome to listeners old and new. Remember, spread the word. Make sure you give it a like and subscribe. Very important. That helps us grow. On today's podcast, I have got the cricket writer from The Times, Elizabeth Ammon, known to many as Legside Lizzie. So this will be good. Make sure you listen right to the end. Let's get into it. Hi, Lizzie. Welcome along to 98 Radar. Good to have you on board.
Thanks, Darren. It's good to be here.
Yeah. Cricket season's underway properly now, and we're getting the sort of scent of international cricket with test matches on English soil not far off. And then, of course, Wisden last night announced the new almanac for 2023, along with their Cricket of the Year. So lots to talk about. Let's just start with Wisden. And the players that they named. Ben Stokes, World Cricketer of the Year. Is that a surprise?
No, I don't think it is. I don't think he could have chosen anyone else, really, given what's happened since the beginning of last summer. I mean, it's been absolutely extraordinary, really. You know, there were times last summer where I was sitting there going, I don't know what I'm watching. This is absolutely bizarre. I think it was Trent Bridge that against the Kiwis on that final day when they'd opened the gates for free, and it felt like a slightly different crowd because it was for free. You know, students could go for free, and people who perhaps haven't been to test matches before, and they were teeing off, and I was just like, okay, this is something special because people are watching this and no one's leaving the ball outside off stump and no one's doing their elaborate leaves. They just are leathering the ball everywhere. And it was an absolute joy, but absolutely extraordinary. And that all comes down to, Brendan in a sense, but it does come from Ben. It's Ben on the field, isn't it? And it's Ben in the dressing room. And he obviously later in the year, he led England to the T20 World Cup. And then there was the win in Pakistan, which that's just unheard of. So I really don't think that he could have picked anyone else, to be honest.
Yeah. And probably special mention to Rob Key. I mean, there were a lot of raised eyebrows, probably about this time last year, wasn't it? Or maybe a bit, earlier, 2022. I mean, it seemed a very left field appointment, but with looking back, it's inspired.
Absolute genius appointment. He seems Rob has got every call right, hasn't he, since he's got the job? And he just comes to it with such an uncomplicated mind, and that's not an insult. I'm not saying he sees cricket very clearly and sees what the job is and what the role is, and that actually success really is about getting the right people in the right jobs. And he's done that with Brendan and Matthew Mott and Ben. He's made the right calls at all the right turns, really.
There was a really nice piece in your newspaper with Michael Atherton. The pair of them were wandering around a golf course, which seems to be quite a nice natural habitat to explore the persona. And he came across quite well. And I thought one of the interesting things was that he's quite happy that people see him as someone that's not too bright and not too, aware of the bigger picture, but underqualified maybe.
I think when we've seen very intellectual people before, like Ed Smith, that comes with a bit of a weight to it, doesn't it? In that you're very much expected to come up with sort of revolutionary, intellectual, radical ideas, and actually maybe it's just a lot simpler than that. And Rob isn't a big one for his statistical analysis and all of that. It's a gut instinct, I think, is what he feels the game. And that's a good thing, really.
Yeah, it is. It is. Now, we've got the county championship second round complete. Already been some quite notable performances. I mean, Surrey and Warwickshire pulled off stunning wins at the weekend, with Ollie Pope underlining his England credentials with what I suppose you'd call as a bad ball innings at the end of the Surrey match.
Yeah, it was absolutely commanding. It was, it was just fluent and aggressive, and a real array of shots and full of confidence, which I suspect he's probably got from the England dressing room because he's back. One of the things they do in the England dressing room is they really instill them all with so much confidence and so much belief. You're our guy. We want you. You're the talented guy. This is, moving Ollie Pope to 3 in the test team was quite a, it was quite a risk. It's no way he never batted there before, but it's paid off, and he's obviously brimming with confidence. So that was fantastic and a real statement for Surrey, actually, because Hampshire are really, they're also title contenders. So that win for Surrey was a real statement. And Warwickshire looked very strong, particularly in the bowling department. It's a strong bowling attack, that Warwickshire bowling attack, and they should be right up there, at the end of the season. So, and the other result that I thought was, was incredible and really heartwarming was Leicestershire beating Yorkshire in the first round.
Yes. There's a lot going on at Leicestershire this year, and it's good to see one of the sort of unfashionable counties just, grasping the nettle.
Yeah, absolutely. They seem to have a sort of renewed ambition and a renewed confidence. I'm not saying they're going to get promoted or, but I think Rian Ahmed being picked for England has given them a sort of boost, really. A kind of, there is a point to us. We are a county that deserves to exist, and we produce players. It's Peter Hanscom's getting runs, and they've got this. They've got a real talented, as far as I can say, I've only seen it once, but a lad called Josh Hull, who's a 6'8" left arm seamer who seems to get it down there. So I think they had enough of being the whipping boys, and I think there just seemed to be some really good stuff going on at Leicestershire.
Yeah, a word about Rishi. What's it? Rishi Sunak.
Not Rishi Sunak.
My mouth out. No, Rishi Patel.
Talk about him. Don't want to talk about him. Definitely
not at all. Rishi Patel, who's left Essex a couple of years ago, and all of a sudden it's coming together for him. A nice century, his maiden first-class century. So if you're a Leicestershire season ticket holder or supporter, there's a lot, and of course these superb ground plans as well for redevelopment of Grace Road. It's amazing.
And they've always been very good at identifying talent. They've always, James Taylor, Stuart Broad. They've always been good at that.
Charles Dagnall.
Charles Dagnall, Darren Stevens.
Baby Gal, let's write this shit.
But obviously, it's quite disheartening, isn't it, when you're not winning games? But there seems to be a real sense of optimism there, and that can only be good for county cricket. You want all 18. You want all 18 to be competitive across all the competitions.
Yeah, you do, and you want them to survive as well. There's been a lot of pressure the last few years, but yeah, you're right. Performances like that do underline the necessity for having cricket spread as far and wide across the country. Ben Stokes as well has got off to a cracking start this year, part of this whole Surrey drive. A lot of debate and speculation about his involvement in the Ashes and whether he will take the gloves instead of Johnny Bairstow. You got any thoughts on that?
I think he absolutely should. I think he demonstrated that he, not only, we already knew that he was a spectacular glove man, and he, has not let anyone down on that front. But he isn't a typical Baz ball player in a sense, and he knows that. But I don't think he needs to be, because he performs a different role, and he's clearly got the ability to shepherd the tail and step it up and step it down. And I think he deserves to keep his place. He's not let anyone down when he's been in the side, and quite what that means for Johnny, I really don't know. I don't know how you get 12 into 11, because you're not dropping Harry Brook. Someone's got to open, I suppose, if you don't pick Crawley, but I do think they'll pick Crawley, because I think they'll stick with him at least for the beginning of the series. So someone's going to miss out, but I really don't know who.
Yeah, well, I think that in itself is an interesting conundrum. Is that because this Ashes series is so compact, it's going to be, and I don't mean any disrespect to the test matches against Ireland that precede that, but I'm just sort of thinking that maybe there is room for 12 or 13 players as part of the Ashes series, because people like Jimmy, who I watched at Chelmsford at the weekend, bowling in very managed spurts, although he got cookie twice, which will please him no end. But I'm just wondering if there will be a little bit of rotation going on.
Oh, there will be amongst the bowlers, definitely, because Mark Wood has said, I mean, there's no way Mark Wood's getting through 5 back-to-back test matches. He'll probably play 2, maybe. Jimmy might play 3 of the 5. I don't think Broad will play all 5. We await to see whether Jofra is going to be all right or not. He's obviously not playing in the IPL at the moment because of an elbow issue. Chris Wokes took wickets at the weekend, didn't he? So, he'll be in the mix. Maybe an Overton. Saqib Mahmood was back for Lancashire Twos last week. I think he's playing. He's supposed to be in Lancashire first team this week. They haven't put their squad out yet. But, there are lots of bowlers to pick from, but I suspect they will have to be very careful with them because we've got 5 in 6 weeks. So you've got 5 Ashes tests in 6 weeks, plus the Ireland test before that. So that's 6 test matches in 7 and a bit weeks. It's, it's a bonkers schedule. We can talk about that some other time. But which means that there's no international cricket in August, which is ridiculous. But yes, there will have to be some rotation. I can't see them playing more than one spinner at any point, and I do wonder if they might even play one of them without any spinner at all. And the other slight issue is, can Ben Stokes bowl? How is he? Is he fit enough is his knee all right? At the moment, he's got a toe problem that's keeping him out of the IPL. And if he's not the 4th seamer, that changes the balance of things.
Isn't the Ashes, though, regardless of timing and schedule, whatever, it's always, for me, the most special of cricket series. And it always has an element of high drama, pantomime, gamesmanship, showmanship, you name it. It's all there. If you love cricket, you can't take the eyes off any Ashes series.
No, and I think this one will be particularly, given the way that England are playing, and given that Ben has asked for fast, bouncy pitches, and given the characters involved on both sides, with Warner, Australia named their squad last night.
Yeah, that's right.
Warner's in. I mean, who knows for how long, but he is for the moment, and Marnus and Steve Smith and Khawaja's in great form, and they've got their quicks, it's going to be a real contest. I think it'll be a really exciting series.
Oh, yeah, I love it. I mean, Davey Warner being picked, only 1 ton in 19 tests, but you just know that if he's going to pick a time to come good, this is going to be it.
Well, yeah, because he has already hinted that he's going to step away from red ball cricket after this series. So this is his swan song, he'll want to go out on a high.
Yeah.
But he's not getting any runs in the IPL, so he's not in great form.
Just a word about the IPL and its growing influence over world cricket. Now, Lawrence Booth said last night that T20 was, with T20, cricket was in danger of cannibalising itself. And we've seen this exponential growth of T20 franchise cricket. No one seems to be that particular about embracing the 100, but that's for another conversation. But this year has seen some quite worrying developments with 2. First of all, the SA20, which but to me just looked like a really great success and ticked all the boxes of what a successful T20 wants to be.
It was really good. It was really good. And fair play to Graham Smith, who is the sort of I don't know quite what, is director of tournament or something. It was really high quality cricket, and it was an exciting tournament, and good for South African cricket, because obviously they've been in financial trouble and they've tried to get their franchise tournaments off the ground before and it hasn't worked. So yeah, fair play to him. But that one happened at the same time the UAE ILT20 was happening. Now that one is mad, because if you could argue that it's not really a domestic tournament because they have 8 overseas players. Yeah. So it's basically an international tournament.
Globetrotters.
international players playing against other international players. I mean, it was a good watch and it was entertaining, but that's another one where the money was very good because it's got IPL links. You know, some of the teams have got IPL names linked to the IPL franchises, but that was going on at the same time. I don't think next year they'll overlap. I think they'll try and find separate windows. So it started with that, and then you've got the Pakistan Super League, Bangladesh Super League. They all came off the back of the Big Bash League, and then we're into the IPL for 2 months.
2 years.
Yeah,
Seems to go on.
It's
I try
long.
every year. I think, right, I'm going to pay attention. I'm going to follow this, and I start off with the best intentions, and then for whatever reason, I get distracted, and then it just
no. I mean, we've still got another. I think we've got another 5 weeks of it.
Probably, yeah. Now, what about these other leagues that are really threatening the existence of?
Well, there are two. There are two that are very interesting. The Major League Cricket in America,
yeah,
which this year is just in its inaugural year, but they have signed some decent names, some decent Aussies, and Alex Hales, I think, is wanting to go out there now. This year, it's only because it's inaugural year, it's only a short tournament. It's 3 weeks, and it doesn't actually clash with anything in our summer other than finals day, because it's in a sort of little pocket between finals day and the start of the 100. Now, it will, of course, expand, which means next year it will eat into the blast and possibly the 100. And quite simply put, because it also has IPL money in it, and it's got Microsoft money and Adobe money, it's going to be able to offer people more money than the Blast or the 100. You know, I was hearing that it was offering this year over 3 times what a county white ball player would earn, even a top level county white ball player. So, you know, it's a lot of money. And then the Saudis, of course, having got into golf and Formula One and everything else, they now want to delve into cricket. And why wouldn't they? You know, there's clearly money to be made from T20 cricket, and the links with the IPL. So they're in conversations with the IPL about essentially having the same franchise links. So it would be, I don't know, Gulf Indians if they were linked to Mumbai Indians.
Yeah.
But I mean, we are talking serious money with the Saudis. I mean, money that we can't even have dreamt of in cricket before. But of course, what it does is they're going to want a window for their tournament as well, aren't they?
Yeah.
So who knows what time of year? But we're getting to the point where there's no spare days for bilateral cricket or Test cricket or anything else. You know, just be World Cups that you've got a window for, with T20 competitions essentially throughout the rest of the year. And the other thing that's interesting with the Saudis is the link with the IPL, because the IPL will then have branches basically in 5 different tournaments. They will be able to contract players for 12 months on full-time contracts, and those players just play for that franchise in each of those 5 tournaments. You know, and some of the Australians have already been approached, and they're $5 million Australian dollars for it. You know, that's way beyond what their central contract is. So it won't be long before we head towards a situation where players belong to their club and their country has to ask for them back. Very much the football model, you see what I mean? So it's club first and country second. I mean, I think we'll be a little more protected from it in this country because of the love for Test cricket there is in this country that there isn't in other countries. But it's still going to radicalise, and cricket in 5 years is not going to look anything like it looks now.
Yeah. Well, to me, sort of thinking about it, cricket has always seemed to have, traditional cricket has always had this soft underbelly where money's concerned. And I think back to Kerry Packer and World Series cricket in the 70s.
Yeah.
And, you know, there was the same thing where it was money. I watched that Fire in Babylon, excellent documentary film about the West Indies team of that era. And, you know, it's the same sort of thing as now, that they were being offered money that they could only dream of to go and play for Kerry Packer, and they all went, and it changed cricket. We saw coloured kits, we saw floodlit cricket, we saw white ball cricket, stuff which we just take for granted now, but was all at the time, had everyone clutching up their pearls in terms of what was going on. And I sort of think that, you know, here we are again, and particularly with the Saudis, but I don't know, I think, again, the money involved here is, for a lot of players, going to be too much to resist.
Yeah, you know, and I don't in any way blame any of the players, because, you know, you could be injured tomorrow and your career over. You got to take what you can get when you can get it, because it's such a short career, and you don't know when it's going to come to an end. I mean, it could, you could break your leg and that be that. You never play again. And so I don't blame players for, you know, wanting to take the money. What the governing body, the administrators, needs to try and work out what landscape we're working in now, and try and carve out windows that are for international cricket, so that what you don't have is players having to choose between the two, because no board wants to go in a fight with their players about, because you don't win if it comes down to money. And I don't think that Cricket Australia, ECB, want to ask their players, you know, would you play this test match for this paltry match fee rather than go to this franchise? Because I don't think they want to know the answer.
No, that's right. That's right. And you got to work. You just got to realise that the landscape is changing. You got to engage with it. If you start folding arms and saying, you know, which was kind of the case when the IPL first came along. Was it 15 years ago?
I mean, that was all the root of the Kevin Peterson problems, wasn't it? It was Kevin wanted to go play the IPL, and they kept saying no.
Yeah, that's it. So a fantastic summer to look forward to. I'm guessing in your professional capacity, you'll be front and centre for everything. I'm very jealous, because I'm trying desperately to get tickets for anywhere and failing miserably.
I mean, the other thing that's exciting this summer is the women's Ashes, which are being played at test grounds. You know, and their ticket sales are doing fantastically. You know, 12,000 at Edgbaston for a one-day international. You know, there seems to be. It'll be a hard-fought series. It'll be a good series. You know, the Aussies are so dominant. You know, they're such a good side. But England have got some young talented players, and also there just has been a real shift that women's cricket can stand on its own 2 feet, and people do want to go and watch it. You know, the numbers speak for themselves. They're selling out the test grounds rather than the smaller grounds for women's cricket. So you know, and I think that speaks for itself.
Yeah, and Beth Mooney won the Women's Cricketer of the Year.
Yes, he averaged 100 in ODIs last year, which is just
no, incredible. But women's sport is just on this fantastic trajectory over the last couple of years or so.
Yeah. And there's money to be had in the women's game. I think the ceiling's really high. You know, there's and I think people are just discovering that actually there's an audience for it, and so it's now a case of the women are going to need paying more, because they're not paid very much compared to the men at all, and they're going to need paying more, you know, to recognise the fact that they are bringing in revenue.
Yeah. Let's end. I didn't want to go down this route, but I can't resist it. The 100. Do you think it's teetering?
I don't think it's going anywhere imminently, because of a broadcast deal that's complicated to unpick. And I don't think that the ECB, understandably, want to get into any sort of row with Sky, not least because the ECB's revenue is precarious at the moment. Their financial situation is not brilliant. Some of it is that over the last few years, so much money's been spent on the number of staff at the ECB and costs for the 100, and the 100 isn't making any money. At best estimate, it's losing 9 million a year. At worst estimate, it's about 50 million a year.
Yeah.
So it's not making any money, which is, you know, in a sense, these tournaments need a bit of time before they make some profit. And it has ticked other boxes. The women's competition is fantastic. It is bringing in crowds. There are, etc., etc. However, I think it's not here for the long term. because you can't carry on with a tournament that doesn't make any money. It's going to be impacted in terms of big players because they're going to go elsewhere because they're going to be paid more. The ECB can't afford to up their 100 salaries because they don't have the money. So with the Major League Cricket and Caribbean Premier League and all of that, the 100 isn't stacking up economically for the big name players. You know, we've already seen it this year. The Aussies aren't staying on after the Ashes to play in the 100 because they don't need the 130 grand. They don't need it. Yeah, I mean, you know, it must be nice to be in a position to turn down 130 grand, but you know, they've just been here for 2 months with the World Test Championship and the Ashes, and they don't want to stay for which is not millions of pounds. So, yeah, I think the 100 is teetering, but I don't think it's going anywhere for the moment. So I think it's with us for at least the next 4 years, because of the broadcast deal and ECB not wanting to fall out with Sky, and it's complicated unpicking broadcast deals.
Yeah, I can imagine. Lizzie, excellent as always to talk to you. A real joy. Thanks for joining us, and looking forward to reading your columns in the Times, and maybe bumping into you at outside on the grounds where I'm sat there begging for tickets. Lizzie Ammon from the Times, many thanks for joining us.